Okay guys, what time is it? It's time for some 900 horsepower LS combos. We've got nitrous, we got turbo, and on one combination we got nitrous and turbo. Let's check it out. In this video, we're going to cover different LS combos, all that make 900 horsepower. So how much is 900 horsepower? Well, as we all know, Shane had a gauge and vanilla with a 9. If Vanilla Ice was rolling in his 5.0 with 900 horsepower, he'd be rolling to the tune of 9-second quarter-mile times. If you had a good chassis, it'd probably be 8. That's how much power 900 horsepower is. So let's check out our combo.
First 900 combination is the Big Bang 4.8 liter. Originally back in the day, this was run back in 2010. We thought it was a 5.3 liter. Turned out it was a 4.8. But this thing was equipped with stock bottom end, extra ring gap, high mileage, typical deal. And we equipped it with a set of ported 706 heads. We had sent off the factory 706 heads to the guys at Total Engine Airflow. They did a stage 2 porting on it, which helped out quite a bit. Increased the combustion chamber just a little bit. We installed a cam that I had laying around at the time, which was a Comp XER 281. I'll go ahead and put the specs up for that cam, but obviously it was not designed for what we were doing with it. But it was a cam, and we had it, and we knew that when we put boost to it from the 2 turbos, it would work out just fine. So we also had a fast LSXR intake on this 4.8 and run naturally aspirated. This thing made 450 horsepower, 449.6, and 378 foot-pounds of torque. Here's what happened after we started adding boost. This was a twin turbo setup with 2 of the 76mm CX Racing turbos blowing through their air-to-water intercooler. It was a dual in, single out. And we started off at 8.7 pounds. And with that boost, the power jumped up to 625 horsepower. And we stepped the boost up to 14.5 pounds, where the thing made over 800, made 805 horsepower. And then we stepped it up finally to get over the 900 horsepower. We stepped it up to 19 pounds of boost, where this thing made 956 horsepower and 837 foot-pounds of torque. So it did really well. And you could make right at 800 or 900 if you wanted to bring the boost down a little bit. But this thing worked great. We ran it to 6,500. Now obviously you could keep pulling and wanted to keep pulling out to 7,000 with that camshaft and that combination of intake and cylinder head. And if we could get the boost to be a flat curve, it would work out really well. Back then I just used a manual controller, and it's obviously not ideal because it's a function of what's happening with the wastegates and the turbo and the back pressure and all that stuff. So it'd be much nicer with a electronic wastegate controller like the TC1 that we normally run. This combination worked good. Let's take a look at our 5.3 liter. 900 horsepower combo number 2 was a 5.3 liter, and unlike our previous ones, this one didn't come from the wreck yard. It actually came from the guys from Strictly Performance, who offer a boost-ready combination that's kind of priced in between a really cheap junkyard motor and a dedicated build. So their combination is a stock block, crank, and Gen 4 rods with hard anodized pistons that have ring gap in them. They also got good head gaskets and ARP head studs, and a set of ported 706 heads. The guys from K-Tech did those, and they know a thing or two about making power. For this combination, we installed a Healthy Summit Racing Stage 4 cam, one of their Pro LS cams. And that cam featured a 625/605 lift split, 234/247 degree duration split, and 113 plus 3.5. It also had a fast LSXR intake manifold on it. So this was a good combination for a 5.3, and it produced 502 horsepower and 432 foot-pounds of torque. You can see it had a kind of a double torque peak there, which is always good. Here's what happened after we added boost from a Vortex supercharger. This was a T-trim supercharger. And you can see we just missed making 900 horsepower, made like 898, so we'll call that officially 900. And it made 766 foot-pounds of torque. What you'll see here is that we shut the RPM, shut the runoff early because we were running into belt slippage. And that's kind of the problem. We had an 8-rib pulley on this and a big ATI dampener, and all that worked out good, but we still couldn't get the belt to cooperate. a cog pulley would fix this, and it would also allow us to run this thing up out at 7,000, where this blower would continue to make power. This was an intercooled combination, and this thing would certainly do 1,000 horsepower. But with our limitations with the belt slippage, the best that we could manage out of it was right at about 900. So here's sometimes what happens with the superchargers. You fight belt slippage. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it does. It did on this one. Let's take a look at our 6-liter combo. Stepping up to our 6-liter combination, we actually started out with the thing turbocharged rather than starting out with our NA combination. The reason for that is because we ran this turbo combination, the 6-liter, without an intercooler, and then we added our own chemical intercooling. This 6-liter was an LY6. This was actually our Gen 4 Big Bang motor. So it was a stock bottom end LY6 with extra ring gap, but it had a set of Trick Flow 225 CNC ported heads on it. It had a Stage 3 twin turbo cam from Brian Tooley Racing, and as always I'll put the specs here so you guys can take a look at them. It also had a Dorman LS6 intake, some kind of Dorman replacement of the factory LS6 kind of long runner deal. And it also had a single turbo, our typical single turbo kit. We had the factory truck manifolds feeding our Y pipe with 2 turbo smart wastegates. And in this case, it had a BorgWarner S475 turbo on it. We were set up to run about 7.5 pounds. So run in this configuration, the combination produced 732 horsepower and 641 foot-pounds. So here's what happened after we installed our intercooler, which turned out to be a fogger system from NITROUS Express that injects both the nitrous and fuel into a single fogger. So we just positioned that in between the turbo and the throttle body. And here's what happened after we added, and we added a 100 shot, and we picked up almost 200 horsepower. So that, I mean, if you don't count the big spike here, which was 944 horsepower, but normally this thing was like over 900, so 903, 904, kind of in that range. And what happened was when you add the nitrous, it doesn't just add the power that the jetting supplies, because it also increased the boost. And it picked the boost up by 2 or 3 pounds of boost, which is which is always beneficial for a turbo motor. So adding the nitrous, it didn't really act too much as an intercooler. It only dropped it by about 25 or 30 degrees, which was not a lot. Because the problem is you're not adding a lot of nitrous, so you're not adding a lot of the cool to the hot, so it doesn't change it by that much. But it does add a lot of power. So we picked up almost 200 horsepower by adding the 100 shot. Nitrous works well on turbo motors, just like everything else. Let's take a look at our 6.2 liter. Our next combo, we stepped up to the 6.2 liter. This was actually a crate motor from GM Performance. It was their B15 crate motor, which is the boost 15 pounds, which I find interesting. We actually ran this combination basically the way that it came, with the camshaft that it comes with, which is a LS9 cam. It even had the factory head bolts on it and all that stuff. But we, because it comes with no induction system, because everyone's going to put a supercharger or turbo or something like that on it, we installed just a factory LS3 intake manifold on it and ran it NA to establish our baseline before we installed a big supercharger on it. So our B19 motor produced 479 horsepower. Yeah, these are low compression, like 9-to-1. They're designed for boost. And 446 foot-pounds of torque. So here's what happened after we installed. We put a 4-liter Whipple supercharger on there. And installed a 4.5-inch blower pulley on it. And the combination produced 845 horsepower, so it did good. and 730 foot-pounds of torque. So it's a nice little gain, good, you know, good pick-me-up there for that low compression crate motor. But we stepped down to a 4-inch blower pulley, which obviously increased the boost from that 4-liter Whipple Supercharger, and that brought us over the 900 horsepower mark. That pushed us up to like 925 horsepower, and the peak torque was up in the 807 foot-pound range, so it did very well. And we actually went up from there and could make more power because there was more left in that supercharger. Although with that crate motor, we weren't starting with very much power, especially using that camshaft. You put a better camshaft in it, which we did. We put some like Brian Tooley Stage 3 blower cams and stuff, and that worked a lot better than that factory LS9 cam. But here's our 900 horsepower combination for the 6.2 liter. It was that B15 crate motor with a Whipple supercharger and plenty of boost. I'll go ahead and mark down what the peak boost was out here. Let's take a look at our larger 7-liter combination. Our final combination after running the 4.8, 5.3, 6.0, and 6.2 was obviously to step up to a 7-liter. But while most people associate the 7-liter as a 4.125 bore to 4-inch stroke, this 7-liter is actually produced using a 4.100-inch stroke and a 4.070 bore. And so it's still a 427, just not your standard run-of-the-mill kind of 7-liter LSX kind of thing, or LS7. But this combination was equipped with a set of Trick Flow 255 LS3 heads to work with that 4.070 bore, and it's a low compression because it was designed to be a blower motor, so it was 9.1. It had a good sized cam in it. It was a 661, 651 lift, 243, 263 at 50, and 118 LSA. So the wide LSA tells us that it was designed as a blower cam. It was also equipped with a fast LSXR intake and run in naturally aspirated trim before we added boost to it. It produced 610 horsepower and 558 foot-pounds of torque. So after running that, we installed Procharger F1A supercharger and our standard air-to-water intercooler that we always run with Dyno water. This combination with the Procharger produced 929 horsepower, did really well, and 845 foot-pounds of torque. And I'll make sure to put the peak boost up. It wasn't a lot because it didn't really take too much to get from 600 horsepower up a little over 900 horsepower. And we ended up turning this thing up, putting a smaller pulley on it, and getting a little more aggressive with it, making more power, because there's more power to be had from that F1A. Now this was an F1A and not an F1A 94, which is even more powerful, but the F1A was sized pretty well for this combination. So we had a 427 stroker, but not your standard combination of bore and stroke, which did well, low compression. We added boost, like you should, and it made over 900 horsepower. Let's get to our conclusion.
Okay guys, so what's our takeaway from all these 900 horsepower LS combinations? Well, I think it's this. If you want to make lots of power, add boost. But I tell you what I really liked. I liked adding the nitrous to the boost, because when we add boost, we get more power. When we add nitrous, we get more power. But when we add the nitrous to the boost, we even get more power. So more power plus more power equals more power. And more power is always better. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Next time up, 4 digits.